All right, New York Jets fans, FSPN powered by Etch a Sketch. Frankie from Flatbush here. And let's talk about the latest in the NFL news world because there's not a lot of Jet news. The Jets are on their bye. They made the big trade. Well, not that big, but they made a trade with the Eagles. Michael Carter going over there. John Mechie coming back. Pick swap. All the things. We already talked about that. So there's not going to be a lot of Jet news. There's not going to be any press conferences. The players are not at the facility for the most part. The coaches are not required to talk to the media. So the Jet beat reporters have been reporting absolutely nothing. So we got really no Jet news to talk about until the slate of games happens this Sunday. And then Monday comes around, maybe, get a trade there. The trade deadline is Tuesday at 4 p.m., November the 4th. And so, we'll have to see what Muji and AG do at that point in time. But until then, we don't really have much Jet news to talk about, except that there was a big game last night with the Miami Dolphins and the Baltimore Ravens. And the impact on the Jets had to do with what are the Miami Dolphins going to do going forward. And what you should have been rooting for, what I was rooting for, was for Tua to be awesome and for the Dolphins to win. And to just keep on trucking because we really want the Dolphins to stick with Tua and not be in the running to take a quarterback. Because if the Ravens were to continue stumbling and losing and getting a high pick and near us in the draft, we wouldn't have to worry about them taking a quarterback, right? But with the Dolphins, you don't know what they're going to do, and so we were hoping that they would play well and win, but they didn't. And then the news came after that game. They looked very lackluster. Had some bad luck in the beginning, but by the end, didn't look good for the Dolphins and McDaniel. And then today they fired the GM. They didn't fire Mike McDaniel. They said Mike McDaniel is going to at least coach the rest of the year. Now, we don't know what that means for Tua, and we don't know what that means for the rest of the year, for their coming up, but it is something that we should be very interested in. I put out a poll on the posts part of this website, YouTube, if you want to vote on what the Dolphins are going to do. And by the way, for members of this channel, you should check that regularly because there's a lot of things I post up there for you, and sometimes YouTube doesn't push them out. But, what the Dolphins do is going to be very, very interesting. We'll see what one thing that they might do the rest of the year, they might pull Tua the rest of the year. And that would mean Zach Wilson's going to play. So that'll be interesting to watch. But also, they have a lot of money tied up in Tua. Now, they could do the Denver Broncos Russell Wilson plan of just eating tons of money to get rid of him. I don't know if they're going to do that. Or they could bench him and just eat the money that way. Or they could ride it out with Tua. It seems to me the most logical thing you would want to do. See, the problem that they have is if they so-called waste a pick on a quarterback in the first round this year, their roster is very talent deprived. Unlike the Broncos, where really the only problem really was the quarterback. The Dolphins have a lot of problems. They got a lot of holes on that roster. And a lot of that had to do with Chris Grier's drafting, and that's why they gave him the heave-ho, including Kenneth Grant in the first round last year and Jonas Savania in the second round. That's not working out too good. When you miss on those levels, it's one thing the Jets miss on fourth and fifth rounders. They generally do okay first and second round, not always. Denzel Mims comes to mind, Mekhi Becton. But when you miss on those early picks, you really set yourself back. And so they really want to pick a quarterback again when they have 150, 80, whatever left million on Tua's contract on the roster already. And there's dead cap for releasing him, dead cap for trading him. Who's going to want to trade for him? And so the question really is, can't they make it work with Tua? Because Tua did have a great year, one of these past years when he played 17 games and he had Tyreek Hill and he had Waddle and he had all these people. He put up great numbers and the offense was clicking. And so the idea might be, well, shouldn't we just build it up? We know McDaniel's a good offensive play caller, and we've seen that Tua can play well if you give him the right situation. So shouldn't we just build it up around them and do that? Because then if Tua, then you play it out a few years and see what happens while his contract is being wound down, so to speak, if it doesn't work. And then if it doesn't work, you have a built-up roster that you can plug either a young QB from the draft or a free agent into. Whereas if you waste the first pick on a quarterback this year again, and then any young quarterback you take in the first round is a risk, as we've all seen. Even Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields, these generational talents, haven't worked out as promised by the experts, so-called. And so wouldn't you be better off building up the team? And, this year's first round pick would be, a big chip in that. You could get a Caleb Downs or a Reuben Bain or one of these guys, to start stacking up the team. Instead of wasting it on a quarterback, and then you got to see if he can take the job from Tua, and then you got to hope he plays well and isn't a bust and all of this. So a very fascinating situation down in Miami. Let me know how you think it's going to work out in the comments down below, or take the poll that I put up on this channel in the post section. But it all has an impact on the Jets, because it seems like the Jets will be picking a quarterback in the first round. So we want as few quarterback-needy teams up in the draft with us, competing with us, as possible, so that way we can get the one we want, whoever that may be. So an interesting weekend. We got we got the Sunday games coming up, then we got the Monday night game, and then it's the trade deadline, and we'll know a lot more about the Jets at that point in time, and we'll know a lot more about some of these other teams that are playing on Sunday, and we'll see, see who wins, who loses, just like we were hoping. Maybe the Dolphins had a little fight in them, but it doesn't look like it. So we'll see what happens. Let me know what you think is going to happen with Miami down in the comments section down below, and I will see you next time.